Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at Ynaros Fallin as well as its expansion, Dark Adventures. It's going to run you around 45 to 60 minutes, ages are 14 plus according to the publisher, and I'd say that's about right as well. The time probably is about right, maybe a little longer when you're first learning the game, but I don't see any reason why it would push too much past an hour once you understand the game. And then for the player count, we're looking at either 1, 2, or 4 players. And keep in mind the expansion is included in this, but 1, 2, or 4 players. It is not a 3-player game, however. This game will be showing up at a crowdfunding site near you in the very near future. Check the link in the description below for all the particulars on that. Now, before we get into this game, I do want to mention our sponsor, StoneValleyGames.com. This is a fantastic website where you can go over and get the new hotness, the old classics, the old hotness, the new classics, everything in between. Go check them out. It's run by Eric and Wendy. They have a lot of great programs going over there as well. They've got a loyalty program for their loyal return customers. They will ship to you for free if you live in the continental United States and you order $100 or more from them. And then if you are in the US military and you are stationed overseas at an AA, AE, or AP address, they'll ship to you for free as well. So go check them out. That's StoneValleyGames.com. And now let's get into Ynaros Fallin. All right, so this is the main board of Ynaros Fallin. This is, you can see we've got the blue side over here, the yellow side over there, and the game is primarily going to take place in this area here. Now, I want to just reiterate everything in this game that you're seeing right now, prototype, right? So we've got, this board is a little bit torn up here just from all the play that it's gotten apparently prior to getting to me. These guys down here are probably very similar in style, but who knows, they could get changed up. I do want to go ahead and point out, and these are what the deluxe version of these will look like when they don't have this mask on. Their followers, and then you put the mask on to make them shaman, and so that's how you can tell the difference. If you have the non-deluxe version, they'll look more like these guys here, with the 2 on the end here being the shaman and the 2 in the middle being the followers. So that gives you an idea of what that's going to look like. Give you kind of a general layout of the board here. One of the key features of the game are these magic lands. You have, face up, you've got these red magic lands, and they stay on the board. You don't conquer them. You'll actually, claim them by having people on them, and then you can take advantage of what's going on with that red magic land. And every time you use it, it'll degrade a little bit, and then eventually it'll degrade all the way, at which point you'll take that one off and you'll have the other one underneath it. So that's the red magic lands. Then you have these that can be either blue, and actually all of these, or I guess technically green, and I guess all of those are, let's see, and then the other color is that color there. And these, actually all 3 of these have the same cost, but these you'll either need to pay with your die down here, which is known as your shadow dice, or some of them, let's see over here. Yeah, some of them require you to have 2 of your shaman or followers on there to be able to activate it, or I'm sorry, to conquer it, because these you can actually conquer. And that's a big part of how the end game might happen, and we'll get to that in a minute. Other features we've got here on the board, you've got your experience track over here, which essentially functions as victory points. At the end of the game, whoever has the most of those will win, unless another in-game feature occurs, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Your shaman are moving around the board. They can battle each other. The followers also move around the board. A shaman always start here, whereas followers are over here and have to work their way over to the board. Down here is where you can convert magic crystals into victory points, or experience points, excuse me. And one thing I love about the setup of the game so far is the they've really done a good job of getting the symbology on the board to help you understand things without having to constantly look it up. And so what I mean by that, for instance, is here, if you have one crystal of one color and then two of another color. So you can see we've got one of one color and then two of another right here. That's worth 10 experience points. If we had three on here of the same color, that's worth 12. And if we had three each of a different color, that's worth 15. And so you have that right there. And you'll find that all over the board here. It makes it very easy to figure out what you need to do and to help remember some key rules. These are the mystic sources, and you can see they start with magic crystals on top of them. And these mystic sources are inactive initially, and then you'll end up activating them by flipping them over that way. You can see they're lit up there. You can see that side is the inactive side. That side has kind of a swirl going on, the lights and everything. The reason why these mystical sources are so important is when one of your characters reaches them, and you'll activate it at the end of your turn at that point, and you'll actually gain whatever crystal was on top of it. At that point, you then are going to be able to discover magical lands that are out here. So, and that's based also on your shadow die. So in this case, if we had a 4, then we could discover this magical land here because it is a level 4. It has all 4 of those lit up, and we would flip it over just like that. And now we all know what it is, and somebody can get over there and conquer it. Also, though, let's say that it was actually like this. We had a 1 here. And so now with this 4 on the shadow die, we could discover this 3 and this 1 because 3 plus 1 is 4. And so we would flip that one over and flip that one over. Now both of them are able to be conquered. So then the players have these boards as well. And you can see right here, this is where you can store the magic crystals that you discover. But then you see these on the side, right? Well, this is where the lands that you conquer will go. And so, if I had come over here and conquered this one, for instance, I would take it and I would place it right here. And then that's going to give me the experience points there. And I would slowly start filling this up every time, getting more experience points. And in the process, I'm also working towards one of the goals that will end the game, which is that if I fill my board up, and so I have 6 different conquered lands here, that will trigger the end game. Another way to trigger the end game is if 3 of these magic land piles are completely exhausted, that will trigger the end game. And the other way to trigger the end game is if a player loses all of their vital stones over on this board here. Now, when I say trigger the end game, really I mean you go into in-game scoring. This in-game scoring is only used if this board is filled up or if the 3 different areas of magic lands are completely emptied. The vital stones, that's different. If the game ends because of that, then whoever has lost all of their vital stones is the loser. The other person is the winner. So what is this board over here? Well, so as you're moving around the board and, players are going to have people out here. And as you're moving around, if a shaman moves into the same space as an opponent's follower or shaman, then a battle is going to occur. Now, before that battle occurs, players may have spent time adjusting their position or really adjusting their opponent's position even on this battle board. And so maybe they even are going to start farther down the track here, somewhere, something like that. But if they're here, they're at 0, and that's the best position to be in initially for the battle. But when they start battling, they will be using these cards here, which we haven't even talked about yet, but these cards, you can see, have 2 different colors or a third neutral color on here. So when the battle starts, you can use this reference here to remind you how you can use the different cards. And so, for instance, if you have a card of the opponent's color, you can play that for 1 combat unit. But if you have your own color, then that counts as 2. And so, maybe I play 1 down like that and 1 down like that. So right now I've got 3 combat units. But then I could play one of my own color across the top like this and essentially double what's already here. So I've got 3 here already. So now I've got 6 combat units. And in doing so, you can either use this battle, and then you can use all this strength that you're building up to push your opponent down their battle energy, or even recover your own battle energy if you've been pushed down. But eventually, you're either going to be pushed all the way to the skull, or you're going to retreat, or your opponent is going to push their skull, or they're going to retreat. Either way, somebody eventually will lose the battle. When that happens, they lose 1 vital energy, and that will go to the opponent who won the battle. Also, though, players are going to get victory points whether they won or not, or experience points whether they won or not, by according to how much damage they dealt to their opponent. Also, the magic crystals come into play. If you use magic crystals, you'll also then gain access to these battle dice. And once you have used a particular color magic crystal and also claimed the battle dice of that color by doing so, that means the opponent cannot use that color crystal during this battle or that die. So there's some play back and forth with that as well. Now, so far, everything we've talked about is just for the level 1 complexity of the game, because this game does something really cool with the complexity level. It has level 1 for you to first learn the game. And then it has a section in the rule book, just a couple extra pages, just a few extra pages to increase the difficulty, and so, or not the difficulty, but the complexity of the game. And so, for instance, with the lands out here, we now have level 2 lands that can get magic lands that can get added into the mix. These evocation tokens get thrown in to the mix as well. There are these shadow tiles down here that are now part of the game. These shadow tiles basically represent your power made manifest on the hexes of the board. You create these tiles of your color, and it's either full color or with that neutral color as well. And these are created when you play your shadow cards. And the reason why you might want to do that is by putting the full color version of these shadow tiles out, you're creating safe spaces where the opponent cannot actually move into those spaces. In addition, the player whose color it is can move in those spaces for free, so it doesn't cost anything. Whereas normally you're spending 1 movement every time you move, these are now free for you to move in. But you're going to want to be careful, as you only have 15 of these, so you're going to be kind of weighing where the best place for them is and how to use them to your advantage the most. But if you create these bicolor ones, these are, for your purposes, they are your color, but for the opponent, they actually count like these dark tokens here, meaning it actually slows your opponent down. It causes them to spend 2 movement to move through them instead of just 1. And these evocation tiles right here, these would replace, during the setup, how we have the magic crystals on these mystical sources. They replace those, and each of them has a different power on them, and so it makes it even more interesting when you are actually moving onto those mystical sources for the first time. So now level 3 complexity adds a few additional things. So you keep everything you already got. You're going to add this experience point or experience fragment platform. You're going to bring in these temples into the mix and the actual experience point fragment tiles as well. Also, the player board flips to this side and you use this side instead. You'll notice you only have 4 spots to hold crystals instead of what you had before, but now you've got these spots up here as well, which, as you may have noticed, are exactly the right size for the experience fragments. And you'll also flip this battle board over to this side, which you can see has a shorter track here. This board here actually starts with 6 of these fragments face up. And so now you'll notice on your experience tracker here at 20, 40, and 60, it actually has that experience fragment symbol right next to it. And so what that means is when you reach 20, 40, and 60 experience, that's when you actually are able to acquire a fragment. And so you would take the fragment and then you would put it on your board, and now you have access to that ability. Or since you only have four storage slots for the magic crystals, you can put it face down instead, and now you have an additional storage slot for magic crystals instead. But that, of course, means you no longer will have access to this ability. And these abilities can be really great because they are free ability. Basically, it gives you a free ability on your turn. A bonus, a great way to kind of level up what you're able to do. Now, where do these temples come into play? So let's say we have this one right here. That's a bicolor, right? And then we've got two more dark color tiles out here like that. So now anytime you've got three of these that are either dark or bicolor, you now have the option to build a temple. You put it right there in the center. And then when you have a character on any of the temple spaces or temple hexes, at the end of your turn, every character in one of the temple hexes will score experience points equal to the area of the temple. So in this case, 3 experience points for each character in that area. And then these add to end game scoring as well. So really what we've got here is this game has all these different things, and it starts you with the level 1 complexity, and it says, hey, here's a fun game, a really great thing to try out. And you play it and you're like, that's great. What else is there? And it gives you level 2 complexity and adds essentially 2 new mechanisms to the game. And then level 3 really is what I think that's the complete game, right? And so it has this great way of easing you in where you can start playing without knowing all of what seems to me to be the full set of rules. And then it eases you in again with level 2 and then level 3. And then all of these magic lands have little special abilities that you gain access to by conquering them or by activating them if it's the red lands. And then there is the expansion, the Ynaros Fallin Dark Adventures expansion that provides a solo mode as well as a dual mode. So what comes with the solo mode? You're going to have these shaman and follower monsters that you're going to be taking on in the solo mode. A monster shadow die to determine the monster's movement, and of course a monster battle die. But now this is pretty cool. You've got these drifting haze tiles, and they're blocks. You can see it covers 4 hexes at a time, as you can see there. And when it is activated, they're going to grant resources. You can see there's different stuff that's going to be granted depending on what you get here. Magic crystals, shadow tiles of your color, evocation tokens, stuff like that. And also negative elements, wall hexes, monster spawn hexes, and dark tiles. So that's a really cool extra element that shows up in here. You'll use a different personal board here. You can see it comes in either color, whichever one's your preference. You're going to get 10 divination tokens, or divination crystals, I should say. These are a resource that is specific to this solo mode that allows you to influence the drifting haze tiles. You've got some new evocation tokens here. You've also got some new magic lands that are solo specific, as you can see right there. And this solo mode completely takes experience points out of the picture. Instead, you're going to have a number of different missions that you'll go on that have different objectives for you to complete. You can see, and again, all prototype stuff here, but in this particular book, we've got 7 different missions for the solo mode. And then the dual mode is going to provide you with some additional 2-player levels. We've got level 4, level 5 right there. Just a lot of great stuff in that expansion. A lot of cool stuff in this game. I love the way, and keep in mind, this is an overview. This is a very high level look at the rules. One thing I didn't even touch on is when you're moving, if you line up with other characters, you can then spend crystals to control that character. And by control, I mean do things like you can discard a green magic crystal and then use the ability of one of their green magic lands. Or if you discard a red magic crystal when using control, then you can actually use their shadow die and add it to your own and then be able to move that much more. There's just so many cool interactions in here, lots of great stuff. It really feels like a very cool, two-player back and forth experience that just keeps unfolding itself and revealing more and more of itself as you dive into it. If this seems like something you'd be interested in, be sure to check the description below for the date that it's going up on Kickstarter, as well as a link to that Kickstarter. I think this could really be an interesting game to back. A lot of fun could be had here if you're looking for what I feel like is a pretty unique two-player head-to-head experience.